After close to 2 decades in municipal politics, including 8 years as mayor, Tom Laughren has decided the time has come to move on to other opportunities and will be leaving his office at City Hall following the municipal election of October 27th. He joins Speaking of Timmins today as our first ever guest to discuss his career in politics and reminisce about the many successes and challenges that he has endured as one of the more popular councillors and mayors in the history of Timmins. I'm Frank Rock, and welcome to Speaking of Timmins. So I'd like to welcome today to the first ever edition of the Speaking of Timmins blog, Mayor Tom Laughren. Mayor Tom, how are you today?
I'm very fine, Frank, and thanks for this great opportunity.
Well, I wouldn't have had it any other way. Our first episode, and we're really looking forward to this interview. As I was telling you a little earlier, we've gone to social media and asked people if they had any questions for Mayor Tom, and it turns out there was a lot of questions for Mayor Tom, ranging a wide range of topics. So if you don't mind, let's get down to the questions, and we'll go from there.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy the question.
So, Mayor Tom, let's start by speaking about the current status of the City of Timmins. You are doing your yearly State of the City address during Small Business Week next month, but if you could provide our viewers with a brief overview of what you believe at this point, at this very moment, 1 month from the municipal elections, what is the current status of the city, what direction are we going in, and what are some of the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead?
Well, I think Timmins is a city that's poised for growth and opportunity. I think diversification is something that we have been working very hard on, and I think when you tie that in with the opportunities in mining, base metals, gold mining, facilities that we have in this community, Timmins being recognized throughout the world as a mining jurisdiction, I think the future is great and looking great for Timmins.
So you just raised the point of diversification for the City of Timmins. What tangible steps do you think the city should take over the next several years to ensure that it can diversify its economy and not be so tied to the resource-based industries that have been at the core of the city since it was founded, essentially?
Well, I think, forestry is a renewable resource and one that was very prominent in Timmins, so I think there's definite opportunities there. Not necessarily for stud mills, but mills that can produce different type finger jointing, whatever you want to call it. I think when we, talk about diversification, regional centers, so I think when you look at healthcare, education, shopping, from a retail perspective, head offices, Timmins not only has that, but is well positioned for more of that. I think when you look at infrastructure for prospective customers, a data center, as an example, tying in the great fiber infrastructure that we have within our community. When you look at the hotels that are being built, I personally believe to be able to do Canada winter and summer games now is a reality. It's no longer one that we can't look at because we didn't have accommodations. I think when you look at the types of businesses that we have in this community, that may be surrounded by mining and mainly focus on the mining industry, but that expertise can go anywhere in the world. And I think when you look at the global economy, the infrastructure, technology, quality of people that we have here, that is possible, and there's many companies doing it and being very successful as we speak. I think when you look at the retail side, you don't have to look any further than Tweed and Hickory, or the former Tweed and Hickory, and Mark Soucy and what he has done. And I know there's many other companies from a retail perspective and small business perspective that are doing that global work right out of Timmins.
Speaking of diversification, what is your take on initiatives such as Timmins 2020? Can taxpayers expect long-term tangible results from these initiatives? Some people in the community seem concerned that it is yet another consultant's report that will ultimately not be as impactful as anticipated for the city.
Well, I think, strategic plans and things like the 2020 are going to go on. Every community does them. They're important to your community. And to me, the strength of any of those type of initiatives is going to be based on the buy-in from the public. So those who are doubters, I believe, need to get involved and need to attend meetings and become part of committees. But I'm just going to give you two successes. And I'm not going to say they were all because of the 2020, but, there were definite issues that were raised by people as we were going through the process, and one was transportation and the cost of airfare to Toronto. And I think, in the period of this strategic plan, we've been able to attract Porter, which has definitely changed the outlook both ways. Easier for people who need to get to larger centers for healthcare, tourism, whatever the reason is, could do it now at a very reasonable rate. And I think the other competition in Air Canada and Jazz has followed suit. So I know now you have two quality airlines running out of our community. I believe the other one that nobody would have ever thought we in Timmins could accomplish and is the partnership with the Canadian and French Space Agency on flying high altitude balloons out of the Timmins airport. They've just wrapped up, as of yesterday, their initial launch period. The hope is that we will be doing 2 of those a year, but they bring 150 scientists, technical engineer people into your community that stay in hotels and restaurants. And, what else can spurn off of that? So I think, as we move forward with different plans, that's definitely going to be one of them. But I think, the community is successful when everybody pulls together. Any organization, any business works because people work it as a team, they buy into it. And obviously, I believe this strategic plan, we've accomplished a lot more of that buy-in from the community. Do we still have a challenge and a ways to go with that? Absolutely. But, social planning, when you look at, food banks and all the different things that we have in our community that are run by volunteers, what effect does that have on your economy? And just think if you could change some of that around. So, there's a social planning committee that was formed. I think when you look at what we've done from the Master Rec Tourism Culture Plan and some of the ideas and issues are in there. Those are all stories to be told. And, diversification is an easy word to say. It's a lot tougher to do when you're located where we are. But, I have to be honest, people who look elsewhere or, even better, people who come to Timmins can't believe the type of community and the friendly people that we have. And I believe that's what we really need to build on.
Okay.
And then I think when you really look at the type of people, the quality of people that we have in this community, if we all work together, just think about where we could end up.
One last question on diversification. When it comes to attracting government-based project offices, etc., to the City of Timmins, do you believe, as many people do, that our community has been hindered by the fact that our federal and provincial representatives have not been from the governing party while you've been as mayor, or has that been overplayed by a lot of people?
Well, I think it gets overplayed only because we continue to, if we were that worried about it, we would elect people who are in government. But I think you have to look at the same thing, right? It's very important for your local MP or MPP or your mayor and council or school boards to work with whatever government and whatever party is in power. And again, I think that comes down to the teamwork. And, if the community all pulls together and you have an MP and an MPP who are pulling in that same direction, then I believe anything can be accomplished. And, at the end of the day, sure, is it nice to have a cabinet minister that's attached to your community or close to your area? Absolutely. But, the democracy in Canada shouldn't revolve around that. It does revolve around, opposition. But I think, there has to be a respect level there as well.
Sort of a retrospective question now, but if you could go back in time to when you started in politics, with the experience and the knowledge you've gained over the past 20 years, and you could have a conversation with a young Tom Laughren, what would you tell him about being a councillor and being mayor of the City of Timmins?
Well, I think the two keys would be, I would have definitely wanted to, and I've always been an infrastructure type guy, but I think when I look at the infrastructure, some of the things we're doing today, we should have started a lot longer ago. If you had a crystal ball and saw where government finances would be, you definitely would have done that. So I think, the importance of infrastructure to your community and your growth is paramount. And then I think the other thing is diversification. We've been very fortunate in this community with the jewelry box we sit on, and I'm a firm believer that there's more jewelry in that box that will be discovered, but I think a good balanced community is one that has diversification. And I think, and I spoke about this a little earlier. I think when you look at the healthcare system, the hospital, the education system, right from pre-K to the colleges, university to Hearst, and the partnerships that Northern has created, I think we have state of the art. But we could have always been a little bit more outright, maybe with some of the opportunities that could have come our way if we weren't maybe focused so much on just the resource side.
One of the interesting things about your political career is that you haven't really ever been challenged, whether it were as a councillor or in a mayor's race, by a candidate that had the name recognition and the background and experience that you had. A lot of people in the community, including many of your supporters, are saying that they would have liked to have seen you at least once as part of a hard-fought campaign so that you could have presented your vision for the city against another strong vision for the city and have that kind of conversation that makes political campaigns often very interesting. What do you say to that? Is that something that you've ever stopped and thought about as mayor or as a candidate?
Well, you know what? I think debates and election, depending on who you're up against, can be sometimes overrated. I think I've always been focused on being 110% genuine, being respectful, looking for the betterment of the community. So, had I had that opportunity, the Tom Laughren that you know and see and have heard of over the last 20 years would have been the same Tom Laughren in those debates.
Okay.
I think, over my years on council, I've had many debates, and I've been probably very successful in, some of my beliefs and bringing those to the table and making them happen. And I think that's probably a sign of a successful politician or a successful person that can, work with others to come forward with a plan. But, in the big picture, when you think about public input, an election with two great candidates, especially running for mayor or provincial or federal, definitely should help to get people interested. And so, if there would be one regret, that would be it for sure.
Speaking of election campaigns, over the past 20 years, it seemed that every time there was an upcoming federal or provincial election, there was always a buzz in the community wondering if Tom Laughren would run either on the provincial or the federal level. Could you, maybe clear up how close have you actually ever come to being a candidate for a provincial or federal election?
Well, yeah, you're right. There's always been rumors, and I can say that I've honestly been approached for most provincial or federal elections by not only one party but two, and I've never been a guy to say no to an opportunity right off the bat, and have definitely looked at them. I'm very much focused on Timmins and family, and that's probably the reason that I didn't look a little harder at any of them. But again, I'm still a young man, and what happens over the next coming years, who knows? But again, I know those opportunities will more than likely come my way, and I will be asked, and at the right time, I will look at them, and if it makes sense from a family perspective and from wherever I'm at in my career at that point in time, who knows?
Join us later this week for part 2 of our interview with Mayor Tom Laughren as we discuss the Ring of Fire, the secondary water treatment plant, and how Timmins can potentially deal with its infrastructure issues. I'm Frank Rock, and thank you for joining us on the first edition of Speaking of Timmins.